Einstein held a secret he carried with him on his daily walks, through the ivy-covered corridors of Princeton, a secret that involved the greatest mathematical mind of the 20th century, and a mathematical proof that, if revealed, would absolutely shatter everything you believe about science and faith. For 50 long years, this proof remained hidden. For 50 years, the academic world pretended it didn't exist, and for 50 years, they hoped you'd never discover the truth. Today, that ends. You're about to uncover something that less than 1% of the people on this planet know, something that connects the most brilliant mind in modern physics with an equation that proves, mathematically, the existence of God. And before you dismiss this as hyperbole, let me tell you something that will completely shift your perspective. Back in 2013, computer scientists in Germany fed this very proof into an artificial intelligence system, specifically designed to evaluate high-order logic. The result? The AI confirmed it. The proof is correct. God exists. Mathematically. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it all began. It was 1933, when a young Austrian mathematician named Kurt Godel arrived in the United States for the very first time. He was 27 years old, and already considered an absolute genius. Just 2 years prior, he had published something that shook the very foundations of mathematics. His incompleteness theorems proved that there are mathematical truths that can never be proven within any consistent logical system. Think about that for a moment. Godel demonstrated that mathematics itself has limits, that there are truths that transcend the human capacity to prove them. This sent shockwaves through the academic world. Mathematicians and philosophers around the globe were utterly shaken. The dream of creating a perfect, complete, logical system, a dream that stretched all the way back to Leibniz in the 17th century, was utterly destroyed by a 25-year-old Austrian. Bertrand Russell, one of the 20th century's greatest philosophers, had dedicated decades of his life attempting to ground all of mathematics in pure logic. His monumental work, Principia Mathematica, co-authored with Alfred North Whitehead, was considered the pinnacle of human logical thought. Godel demolished all of that with a paper just a few pages long. And the most disturbing part, Godel used logic itself, and to prove the limits of logic, he used mathematics. To prove the limits of mathematics, it was as if someone had discovered a fatal flaw in the source code of reality itself. But that was only the beginning. In that same year, 1933, Godel met someone in Princeton, someone who would change his life forever, Albert Einstein. What happened between these two geniuses remains one of the great mysteries in the history of science. They developed a friendship so deep, so intense, that the other members of the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton simply couldn't understand it. Einstein and Godel walked together, every day, every single day, regardless of the weather, regardless of their schedules. Those walks were sacred. And here's the detail that will make you question everything. No one knew what they talked about. Their conversations were a complete mystery. To all the other scientists at the Institute, the economist Oscar Morgenstern, who worked at the same institute, recorded something extraordinary in his diaries. In the final years of Einstein's life, the great physicist confessed to Morgenstern that his own work no longer meant that much to him. That he only went to the Institute for one reason, just one privilege, the privilege of walking home with Kurt Godel. Pause and absorb that. The man who discovered relativity, the man who revolutionized our understanding of space and time, the man who gave humanity E equals mc squared. This man said that his work no longer mattered as much as his conversations with Godel. What on earth did they talk about? The answer to that question was kept secret for decades, and when you find out, you'll understand why. See, Godel wasn't just a mathematician, he was a profound philosopher. And, unlike what most academics publicly admit, he believed in God, not in some abstract God, not in a metaphor. He believed in a personal God. In one of his most revealing statements, Godel said something that sharply contrasted his view with that of Einstein. He said that Einstein's religion was more abstract, akin to Spinoza and Indian philosophy, that Spinoza's God was less than a person, and then Godel concluded with an extraordinary claim. Mine, he said, is more than a person, because God can play the role of a person. Einstein believed in an impersonal God, the laws of the universe, cosmic harmony. Godel believed in something more, something that could be demonstrated, and he spent decades working on it, in secret. The first version of Godel's ontological proof appears in his papers, dated approximately 1941. That means that during all those walks with Einstein, during all those mysterious conversations, Godel carried with him a mathematical proof of the existence of God, but he never published it. Why? Why would one of the greatest mathematicians in history keep his most profound discovery a secret? The answer reveals something disturbing about the academic world, something they don't want you to know. Godel was afraid of ridicule, afraid of being rejected by his peers, afraid they would think he had gone insane. Imagine that, the man who revolutionized mathematical logic, the man Einstein considered the greatest logician since Aristotle. This man was so terrified of academic backlash that he hid his discovery for almost 30 years. What does that say about the neutrality of science? What does it say about the supposed openness of the academic world to ideas that challenge materialism? Godel only revealed his proof in 1970, and even then, it wasn't a public revelation. He thought he was dying in February of that year. He allowed his colleague Dana Scott to copy a version of the proof. The proof circulated privately among a small group of logicians in August of 1970. Godel told Oscar Morgenstern that he was satisfied with the proof, but Morgenstern recorded something revealing. Godel wouldn't publish because he was afraid that others would think he actually believed in God when he was just doing a logical investigation. Read that again. Godel was so afraid of academic prejudice that he preferred to pretend the proof was just a logical exercise, not an expression of his real belief. But here's the irony. Godel really believed in God. He read the Bible every Sunday. His philosophy was, in his own words, rationalist, idealist, optimistic, and theological. Godel was no simple-minded religious person. He was one of the most rigorous thinkers in history, and it was precisely his rigor that led him to conclude that God exists. Not despite his logic, but because of it. He talked about this with Einstein for years. During those mysterious walks that no one understood, Einstein with his more abstract view of God, Kurt Godel with his faith in a personal God. Two geniuses, two perspectives, one common quest for the ultimate truth. And what did Einstein think of Godel's proof? Unfortunately, we have no direct records. But we do know that Einstein deeply respected Kurt Godel's work. And we know that Einstein spent his last days valuing those conversations above anything else. So Kurt Godel had a proof. He believed in the conclusion of that proof. But the fear of the academic world was so great that he preferred to die without formally publishing it. And the proof remained in the shadows for decades, circulating only among a handful of logicians who treated it as an intellectual curiosity, a relic of an eccentric genius, until 2013. In that year, two German computer scientists, Christoph Benzmuller from the Free University of Berlin and Bruno Wolzenlogel-Paleo from the Vienna University of Technology, decided to do something unprecedented. They fed Kurt Godel's ontological proof into an artificial intelligence system designed to verify high-order modal logic arguments. The result was published and caused silent shockwaves in the academic world. The artificial intelligence confirmed that, from Kurt Godel's premises, it necessarily follows that God exists. Let that sink in. A machine, a cold, impartial logical system, verified a mathematical proof of the existence of God. The researchers were shocked by the speed of the verification. The artificial intelligence system managed to confirm the validity of the proof in a matter of seconds. something that would have taken months for a human being to verify manually. The machine did almost instantly, and most impressively, the AI found no flaws, no logical errors, no inconsistencies. The proof was solid as a rock. Christoph Benzmuller, one of the researchers, stated that the result demonstrates that computers can be used to verify complex philosophical proofs in ways that human beings simply cannot. The implication was clear. If you trust logic, you should at least seriously consider the conclusions of this proof. Of course, critics immediately tried to minimize it. They said that the AI only verified the logical structure, not the truth of the premises. They said that you can prove anything if you accept the right premises, but they're missing the point. And on purpose. Kurt Godel's proof isn't like proving that unicorns exist if you assume unicorns exist. The proof begins with axioms about positive properties, properties that are intrinsically good, and through a chain of rigorous logical deductions, using modal logic that deals with necessity and possibility. The proof demonstrates that a being with all positive properties necessarily exists. That being is what we call God. The proof follows a tradition that dates back to Saint Anselm in the 11th century and was refined by Leibniz in the 17th century, but Kurt Godel elevated it to a level of mathematical precision that no previous philosopher had achieved. And Einstein knew. During all those walks, Einstein knew that his friend was working on something that went far beyond physics, something that touched on the most fundamental question a human being can ask. Why is there something rather than nothing? And if there is something, is there a God? Now you might be wondering, if Einstein knew, what did he think? Einstein's relationship with God is fascinating and misunderstood. In 1929, when Rabbi Herbert Goldstein asked Einstein by telegram if he believed in God, Einstein responded with one of the most quoted statements in the history of science. "I believe in Spinoza's God," he said, "who reveals himself in the ordered harmony of what exists, not in a God who concerns himself with fates and actions of human beings. Spinoza's God, an impersonal God, a God that is identical to the laws of nature, a God that does not intervene, doesn't judge, doesn't answer prayers." But Einstein also said something that is often ignored. He said that he was not an atheist, and he got angry when atheists used his words to support atheism. Prince Hubertus of Prussia recorded Einstein saying that, in view of such harmony in the cosmos which his limited human mind could recognize, there were yet people who said there was no God. But what really makes me angry, Einstein said, is that they quote me for the support of such views. So Einstein rejected atheism. He believed in something. That something was more abstract than Kurt Godel's personal God, but it was real to him. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Einstein spent the last 30 years of his life searching for a unified field theory, a theory that would unite all the forces of nature into a single, elegant mathematical description: gravity, electromagnetism, the subatomic forces, all in one equation. He never succeeded. But his motivation for that search reveals something profound. Einstein believed that if there is only one God, there cannot be two contradictory ways of how he governs the universe. The search for unification was, for Einstein, a religious quest disguised as physics. The New York Times even elevated the unified field theory to a religious level. They sent reporters to churches all over the city to record sermons about it. The headline read, "Einstein seen as almost mystic." Theologians and journalists were amazed. Physicists, not so much. The theory never worked. But Einstein's quest reveals that, despite his differences with Kurt Godel about the nature of God, both shared something fundamental. Both believed that the universe was comprehensible, that there was order, that there was harmony, and that this order and harmony pointed to something beyond chance. Einstein expressed this in his famous 1930 essay on religion and science. He described what he called cosmic religious feeling, a feeling that, according to him, was the strongest and noblest motive for scientific research. He wrote about the deep conviction in the rationality of the universe, that Kepler and Newton must have had to spend years of lonely work unraveling the principles of celestial mechanics. And then Einstein asked a question that echoes through the centuries. How can it be that mathematics, being after all a product of human thought independent of experience, is so admirably adapted to the objects of reality? That question is the heart of it all. If the universe were random, chaotic, without design, why would mathematics work so well to describe it? Why would abstract equations invented by human minds be able to predict the behavior of galaxies billions of light years away? Einstein didn't have an answer, but he recognized the mystery. And that recognition was for him religious. Kurt Godel went even further. He didn't just recognize the mystery, he tried to solve it. His ontological proof was an attempt to demonstrate that the order we see in the universe isn't accidental, that there is a source that possesses all positive properties to the maximal degree. And remember, this isn't vague philosophical speculation. This is mathematics, formal logic, the kind of reasoning that can be verified by a machine. And it was verified. Now, let me tell you something that's going to connect all of this in a way you've probably never considered. In 1949, Godel gave Einstein a 70th birthday present, but it wasn't an ordinary gift. It was a mathematical solution to Einstein's field equations of general relativity. This solution demonstrated something impossible. It demonstrated that, theoretically, the universe could allow time travel. Godel's rotating universes, as they became known, showed that closed time-like curves were possible within Einstein's own theory. This meant that you could, in principle, travel to the past. Einstein was troubled. Godel's solution made him question his own theory. If general relativity allowed time travel, something was wrong with our understanding of reality. But look at what Godel was really doing. He was using mathematics to explore the limits of reality, the limits of time, the limits of what's possible. The same mind that proved the limits of mathematics with his incompleteness theorems, the same mind that explored the limits of time with his rotating universes solution, that same mind created a proof of the limits of existence, a proof that demonstrates that, necessarily, there exists a being that transcends all limits. Do you see the connection? Godel dedicated his life to exploring frontiers, the frontiers of logic, the frontiers of time, the frontiers of being, and in each case, he found something that transcends, truths that can't be proven within the system, possibilities that defy our intuition about time, and a being whose existence is logically necessary. Einstein understood this. That's why he valued those walks so much. That's why his own work seemed less important in comparison, because Godel was working on the ultimate questions, the questions that really matter. And the academic world? The academic world preferred to ignore it, preferred to pretend that Godel's proof was just a logical curiosity, preferred to maintain the myth that science and faith are incompatible. But the truth is more complex, much more complex. Think about the greatest scientists in history, Isaac Newton. He was deeply religious. He wrote more about theology than about physics. Galileo Galilei. He was a devout Catholic, despite his conflicts with the Church. James Clerk Maxwell, that who unified electricity and magnetism, a committed Christian. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory. He said that matter derives from a consciousness. The idea that science refutes religion is a modern myth. A myth propagated by people with specific agendas, a myth that Einstein rejected, a myth that Godel refuted mathematically. And you, watching this right now, are part of a minority, the minority that seeks the truth beyond the convenient narratives, the minority that doesn't accept what they're told without questioning. 99% of people will never know about Godel's proof. They'll never know that Einstein walked daily with the man who proved God. They'll never question why this has been kept out of history books and documentaries about Einstein, but you know now. And what you do with that knowledge defines who you are. Godel's proof isn't a scientific proof in the experimental sense. You can't put God in a test tube, but it's a logical proof, a demonstration that, if you accept certain axioms about what it means to be good, about what it means to be positive, then the existence of a maximally perfect being follows necessarily. And the axioms aren't arbitrary. They capture deep intuitions about the nature of good and perfection, intuitions that human beings from all cultures and all eras share. You've just discovered something that the academic world preferred to hide, something that connects the greatest logical mind of the 20th century with humanity's oldest question. Something that's been verified by artificial intelligence and confirmed as logically valid. And that leads me to a reflection. Do you realize what just happened here? You've just received information that most people will never have access to. Information that's been actively suppressed out of fear of ridicule, fear of challenging narratives. Channels like this exist to reveal these truths, to connect dots that others prefer to keep separate, to give you the power to form your own conclusions based on facts, not on narratives. Guys, when you click the super thanks button, you're not just paying for a video. You're saying that the truth matters, that the search for deep knowledge deserves to be supported, that you're a seeker, not a follower. And that makes you part of something bigger. Now, let me conclude with the question that really matters. What does this mean for you? Godel proved mathematically that a being with all positive properties necessarily exists. Einstein spent his life seeking the unified harmony of the universe, a harmony that he considered divine in his cosmic feeling. Together, these two geniuses represent something profound about the nature of reality. Science isn't the enemy of faith. Logic isn't incompatible with the transcendent. Mathematics, the purest language that the human mind has ever created, points to something beyond itself. When Godel looked at his equations and saw God, he wasn't having a moment of irrational weakness. He was being the most rigorous logician who ever lived. He was following logic to its ultimate conclusion. And when Einstein walked beside him, day after day, year after year, he recognized the magnitude of what Godel was doing. That's why Einstein's work seemed less important in comparison. Because Godel was working on the ultimate question. You may disagree. You may find Godel's axioms questionable. You may prefer a materialist view of reality. That's your right. But you can't deny that one of the greatest mathematicians in history dedicated years of his life to this proof. That Einstein believed in it. That Einstein knew it and valued it. And that when an artificial intelligence checked the logic, it was confirmed as valid. This isn't blind faith, no. This is rigorous reasoning, taken to its most profound consequences. And perhaps this is what Einstein meant when he spoke about cosmic religious feeling, not the religion of dogmas and rituals, but the religion of those who look at the equations of the universe and see order, harmony, design, a mind that designed it all. Kurt Godel called this mind God. Einstein called it Spinoza's God. The names are different. The intuition is the same. There is something that transcends, something that mathematics can touch, but never fully contain. And you, at this moment, have touched it too. The next time someone tells you that science and faith are incompatible, remember Kurt Godel, remember his walks with Einstein, remember the proof he hid out of fear, and the artificial intelligence that confirmed it. And remember that you know something that most don't. You're part of the 1% who searched, who questioned, who discovered, and that search, that curiosity, that refusal to accept easy answers, that's what makes us human. Einstein knew this, Kurt Godel knew this, and now you know it too. So tell me, do you believe that Kurt Godel was right? Do you think that mathematics can prove the existence of God? Or do you think I'm exaggerating things a little? Comment truth if you believe that Kurt Godel discovered something real. Comment hype if you think the proof is just a logical trick without meaning. I want to know what you think, because this conversation doesn't end here. It continues in the comments. It continues in your own reflection. And who knows, maybe your words will make someone else think, someone else question, someone else discover, and thus, the truth spreads. Thank you for watching until the end. You're part of something special. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue exploring the secrets that Einstein knew and that they would rather you ignore. Until then,